anyone else? Oh, Barry's on too, so that makes 11.
Am I missing? I have 10, so I'm missing somebody.
Myself, Cord, Carol, Janet, Nathan, Art, Faye, Roberto, Siri, and Barry, and Jennifer.
Oh, I missed Jennifer. Okay, yeah, so I have 11. And it's possible we have 2 or 3 more that would join, but they might be delayed. So it's up to you, Tom, if you want to start.
I think I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and hopefully the rest can join us if they're able. Certainly appreciate everybody taking some time out on a Saturday to Zoom in. You know, given the situation, it was our only option. We could not have gotten a quorum otherwise. So we are streaming this live to YouTube to make it a public meeting and to meet the requirements that are necessary for that. I just want to, if you do have questions or remarks that come up, it's a little hard to recognize people in the Zoom environment. So I'd certainly encourage you to use the chat feature to put something there, and I can monitor those occasionally as needed. Also, I'll remark that if I get hit with a thunderstorm, Joe was saying a thunderstorm just rolled through the museum. If I get hit with a thunderstorm, then and if I lose connection, then Art, my vice chair, will be taking over the meeting for us until I can reconnect.
Barring technical difficulties from Richmond.
Yeah, barring any technical, and then I don't know. I guess we'll just roll down the list of executive committee members. But certainly let me welcome everybody, and especially recognize our guest today, Fran Bradford, who is the Deputy Secretary of Education, as well as our newest trustee, Siri Russell, who was appointed since our last meeting. And so I welcome both of you aboard. And Fran, if you'd like to make any remarks, now would be a good time.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And I know when you had invited me to join you at this meeting several months ago, we had all planned and hoped that we would be in Martinsville to have this conversation. But very, very grateful to be here. Just wanted to say thank you to all the board members who serve. Your leadership is key, even more so right now. And I know a number of boards are including yours, are wrestling with some of the challenges that we are all facing. And often when you sign up to serve on a board such as this, you don't realize you're going to be having to manage an organization through a pandemic and with all else going on around the world. And so just really, really grateful for your service. A special note to Barry, who I know we don't see, but I know we hear. Unbeknownst to probably most of you on the call, Barry gave me my first job out of college. So somehow this seems sort of a nice circle. And Dr. Art Evans, who lives probably 5 blocks from me, if you listen to public radio in Richmond, he's a true celebrity. So it's really exciting for me to see him, but truly, truly grateful to all of you for your service on the board. And I don't know if they are on the call at all or not, but I would like to say thanks to all the staff members at the museum. You know, a number of whom I got to meet when I was out visiting the museum last year, and the staff's dedication is just abundantly clear as you walk around the facility, and just their enthusiasm and excitement and their professionalism is just remarkable. So just wanted to say thank you to them. And finally, I'd really just like to say thank you to Joe. It's not gone unnoticed, the time and dedication, Joe, that you've put into this organization. And the museum is a true Virginia treasure. Virginia is very lucky to have it. Your region of the state is remarkably lucky to have it. And it is a treasure that has exposed countless children as well as adults to our natural world. Plus, frankly, dinosaurs are just plain cool. And I don't know if it was just serendipity or not, but there's a new series about dinosaur hunting that showed up on TV last night. And so in preparation for this call, I decided to watch it. And now I'm super excited about getting back out there and seeing sort of some of the latest things that you all have done since I was there. Also, that bug collection you all have is really cool too. Remember that fire ant that your staff member showed me? That was really cool. But mostly, Joe, just really on behalf of both the governor and the secretary, I'd like to thank you for your 10 years of service. I know we're about 5 months past your 10-year anniversary, but it's been a busy 5 months, and just wanted you to know that we know that you are doing an amazing job, and all of Virginia is really grateful for those 10 years of service, and really hope that there are, another 10 years of service from you to Virginia. So I just want to say thanks to everybody, and look forward to listening to a little bit, and happy to answer any questions I can.
No, thank you, Fran. I'm glad some of the staffers are here because they're the ones that make the engine move day by day, as you well know. So, but thanks for acknowledging everything that's going on down here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thanks from the board as well for your kind words. And are there any questions from the board members?
Let me just add that, Fran, Fran, did you see the beetles when you were down here?
I did. I saw a lot
The flesh-eating beetles?
I'm not sure Joe let me near the flesh-eating beetles. Maybe that was intentional.
Joe's done a great job during the pandemic.
Good. I have no doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks again, and you're welcome to stay as long as you are able, and we certainly appreciate any time that you can spend with us, and we also recognize that your time is valuable, and so if you have other duties, feel free to peel away. With that, I'd like to bring up our first item of business, which is approval of the minutes from our January meeting in Richmond. Those were sent to you previously, and I just want to ask whether there are any corrections for those that have been able to review them.
No corrections.
Well, hearing none, then I will recognize that they have been approved, and we will then go to my chairman's report. And so I'd like to share with you, and I would ask Zach to bring up a screen share if you can at this point, some of my thoughts. So what you see here is the fact that I visited Richmond after we were there in January in a different capacity. I spent some time on the water on the James River and followed my governor's orders and used the outdoors as a way to socially distance and also to maintain sanity. And I think one of the things that I would remark is that it seems like a lot of people are doing this, and I believe that means there's an opportunity for the museum to more engage with people that are finding themselves connecting with nature. What you see on the upper left are a couple of fish that I caught. It was during the shad run. The shad is a native species to Virginia, a very important species as the country was founded as a food source and so forth. I also caught some stripers there. So the second fish there is a striped bass. And so I want to certainly recognize that, our natural resources are as important as ever for us overcoming the situation that we're in now. And I think, as I said, we'll be hearing more from Joe and the staff about initiatives to take advantage in this vein of increased attention to nature and the respite that it provides us. And I want to commend all the staff for their creativity and their flexibility as we've been dealing with the ramifications from the coronavirus pandemic. I certainly have enjoyed some of the things that I've seen on social media, and I'm sure we'll hear a little more about that on the reports from others. My personal activities, in addition to spending some time outdoors, I did before the coronavirus hit MC 2 science talks at the Wayne Theater, and those are available on the Facebook site. Thanks again to Zach. One was Cal Evanoff giving a presentation on suitable habitat for bees and other pollinators in January. And that was followed by someone from our own Department of Conservation and Recreation Natural Heritage Program, Tyler Ergo, presented Protecting and Restoring the Calbane Natural Area Preserve. And for those of you that have heard me talk about this series before, this is a public series at the Wayne Theater in downtown Waynesboro. It's well attended. We get regularly between 70 and 100 attendees. It is a pay what you will, and it is a very good partnership with both the Wayne Theater and the Center for Cold Waters Restoration, a citizen nonprofit group in Waynesboro. And it's also a venue for us, and me in particular, to communicate to that community about the initiative we have to establish a campus in Waynesboro. And of course, we have some good budget news regarding that, even in light of the hold that is being placed on some of these funds until we know more about the impact of COVID on the budget. I did send a letter of thanks on behalf of the Board of Trustees to the Office of Planning Budget for helping during the budget cycle. They're very helpful, and I know that some of the staff work closely with that office to put in our request and put the finer points on that. And the next slide, Zach. So one of the personal projects that I've undertaken is to look at our fish collection in the museum. Recently, and the image on the left-hand side shows a publication that was recently released, the Field Guide to Freshwater Fishes of Virginia, and it initiated in me the idea that we need to revisit what we have in our collection and what we can do to bolster it. And so I've personally taken that on with the help of Joe. A couple of the images that you see on the right-hand side of the slide are some bottled specimens that we have. Our collection is, I would say, limited. And I'm looking for some support from the Virginia chapter of the American Fisheries Society to both curate it and to expand it, add to it as needed to better represent our fishes of Virginia. Next slide, please. So the other thing that I was able to do before COVID hit was congratulate Joe on his 10-year work anniversary in February. I did that at the foundation board meeting, and here you see an image of the map that the trustees awarded to him, and will be hanging, I guess is hanging in his office already. Next slide, please. So today what I'd like to do is tell Joe we've also added a label for the back of that map to identify, of course, the source of it, and also to recognize him and to list the members of the Board of Trustees. And Joe, if you are in your office, the shelf above your computer should have a manila envelope that Ryan Barber left there. So if you would pull that down, please.
Hey, Ryan, a little help.
I hope you find it. He said it would be on top of your computer on a shelf in a manila envelope.
To the right, Joe.
The suspense is killing me.
It's the scavenger hunt.
It's to the far right on the top shelf.
All right, on the top shelf. Am I in the right office?
It should be ticking by now.
Literally don't see it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's it. And I thank Ryan for being my partner in crime here. But what we did was we sent him the label. And so inside the envelope, you'll find this label that you see in front of you. And if you would just take some time to fix that to the back of the map, that's what we had intended.
I'm probably flagged on security for going in your office, but
there it is.
No worries.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all very
Good.
much. This was really unanticipated, unexpected, I should say. But just to kind of riff off of what Fran had said. She said hope to have 10 more years, or that I have 10 more years in me for the museum. My first thought was, gosh, I hope so too. But that's all dependent on you. But yeah, I'm sold in for the long haul.
Excellent. And that concludes my chairman's report, other than to say that I hope the next time we have an opportunity to meet in August, we will be able to do that face-to-face at our wonderful facility in Martinsville. So I guess if there are any questions, I'd be willing to entertain them. Again, you can put them in the chat.
Tom, I hope you didn't try to eat the shad.
I did not eat the shad. I released that fish. They're very bony, so you may know that one of the things that they did historically was plank them and smoke them, and that makes it a little easier to remove the bones. Not that I don't like the fish, but
political celebration called the shad planking.
yes.
Yeah.
So with that, let me ask, can we have the treasurer's report, Jennifer?
Yes. Okay. So this morning, Joe circulated the treasurer's report. It's for the period ending May 31st, 2020. So I think, I don't know if everyone's had a chance to sort of look at it, but we'll also be going over the proposed budget, and you can see the differences between last year and this year and the impact of COVID. But I think Joe had pointed out that a notable shortfall is in the restricted gifts. If you look under revenues, and that money is for the COVID delayed pavilion project, and it's in the foundation. So I'll give everyone an opportunity to kind of look at it, and if you have any questions.
I just want to point out, if you notice that this ends March 31st, which of course wasn't even a full month for us with admissions, we had already exceeded our admissions, and thanks in large part to the success of our festivals. That was offhand about a quarter or so of our visitation. Just what was, Ryan, that was 3 festivals if we ended March 31st.
Is this end of March or end of May? I thought it said end of May 31st.
End of May, it does say.
There should be a end of quarter report and then a May summary of where we currently stand.
I'm reading the end of quarter. There are 2 documents. So
okay.
But obviously May is going to be a little bit different with especially with the expenses for utilities and salaries.
Right.
But nonetheless, the admissions is the same. But I just thought that showed that we were on a really good trajectory. I don't know what the future is going to have in store. Maybe everything will reinvent this model when we get to a vaccine. But for the time being, I just think that was a pretty good sign, and really reflective of the work of the staff.
Any questions for Jennifer or Joe about the statement? And then we'll move to the budget.
Do we need to accept the treasurer's report?
And typically, that's just for information. We do need to go and vote to approve the.
Oh yeah, I know we need to approve the budget.
Yeah. So,
ready to move to the budget?
Yeah, go ahead and take us to the budget then.
Okay, everyone should have gotten the proposed budget. And I think what they did was show a comparison between fiscal year 21 and then fiscal year 21 post-COVID. Because obviously everyone has been affected by that. So I don't think we're going to be doing festivals anytime soon. So obviously that's going to affect the visitation number. And, you know, obviously we're not sure where education is going to stand. You know, public schools are saying no field trips, but, you know, people who are homeschooled and other private schools, not true. Of course, sales are going to be down in the cafe and in the store. So I think some costs what were adjusted, because I guess the museum is included in phase 3, correct? Whenever we get to phase 3, but we were able to open a little bit, and we're doing that Fridays through Sundays. And there's a lot that's been added to the agency service charges because we're changing the financial reporting system. And also, you know, if various agencies see lower revenues during the emergency declaration, then they may increase their rates. And that's
So that's the very bottom line there on the agency service charges, the $105,000.
yes. So that's why that's beefed up between the fiscal year 21 and then once it went to post COVID. So.
And what is the phone system upgrade line there towards the top under support and revenues that's negative?
That was a that was a lump sum outside of our annual appropriation that we're going to use to upgrade our phone system. And that was something we're going to do here at this last quarter. But with the spending freeze and so forth, it never got spent. So we'll still make do with the old phone system.
Okay. Any questions about the fiscal year budget? And this is one where we do need a motion.
This is Lisa Murner. Well, go
Yes,
ahead.
Lisa.
I was going to move that the budget be approved.
And I'll second it.
Moved by Lisa, seconded by Faye.
You want me to do a roll call, Tom?
Yeah, we'll need to do a roll call vote on this.
Okay, as I read your name, if you would give your vote for accepting the proposed budget. Tom?
Aye.
Art? Art?
Muted.
Aye.
Thank you. Janet?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Melanie?
Aye.
Faye?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Roberto?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Siri?
Aye.
All right, that wasn't awkward at all.
So I took that as a unanimous vote in favor, and so the fiscal year budget passes. Our next agenda item is our executive director's report, and I'll turn that over to you, Joe.
Yeah, I'm going to share some of that with staffers, but a couple of quick things. First of all, I have some sad news. I know a few of you know this already, but our foundation has lost Bruce Wingo. He passed away unexpectedly. He's been a very active foundation board member, and he was actually in his second 9-year term with the foundation. So he finished a 9-year role on the foundation board and then asked to come back. We thought that was really good. So he leveraged a lot of money for Thomas Jefferson Awards. And he also, of course, was the person who pushed the resurrection of Virginia Explorer magazine. So the museum staff are proposing that the foundation, if we lose a board member, they always chip in a memorial brick for out front. So they'll, of course, be doing that. We thought internally, what we could do is we could name the Thomas Jefferson Conservation Award after Bruce to recognize his long efforts with the Thomas Jefferson Awards. And then lastly, since we'll be continuing on with Virginia Explorer, staff will creatively come up with some way to have an in memory of portion on the maybe the cover or something along those lines. But we're also open, after the meeting, if any of you have any suggestions or ways that you think would be best to honor Bruce's legacy around here, we'd love to hear from you. I've been in touch with the family. And so right now, with everything going on, there's going to be a delay before they have a memorial service, but I'll let everyone know when that occurs. Okay, nothing like starting off a museum report with with bad news, but not much you can do about that. Really what I want to cover here is sort of our COVID response. It has impacted our operations, but the one asset that we really have is don't forget that research and collections is the foundation of this museum. It's the reason that it was established in the 1980s in the first place. So the curators during the initial COVID response were mostly scarce, but we were able to work on papers, do data analysis, and so forth. As we've loosened restrictions, we're also fortunate that there's a lot of square footage over there. So we're able to have plenty of workspaces for everyone, and we're all following strict safety protocols. So research and collections should basically continue on as it always has. You probably noticed some of the increased social media that we've generated. That might be Ben in Nature or Adam Pritchard's Tales of Ancient Life, and other avenues, live animal feedings and so forth. We actually plan, regardless of what happens with the COVID situation, we plan to continue to have a higher density of this outreach than we had in the past. It just seems to have been well received in the public, and I think is good for us. So the staffers who've been heavily involved in that are all enthusiastic about moving forward with that. One of the areas that were impacted was, of course, museum visitation. We opened yesterday in celebration of Juneteenth for no cost. And we did have some takers. It wasn't onrushing hordes of visitors, but we did serve a number of people yesterday. And today's a regular day, so we're gonna be open from here on out Fridays through Sundays until we get a couple of days or a couple of weeks worth of data, and we'll look and see if it would be worth it, worth the expense to open up further days during the week. As far as education goes, we do have an education report coming up, so I'm going to let them kind of talk about it. But just please be aware that we're going to have some curtailed activities that pertain to summer camp, school field trips, outreach into schools, but there might be opportunities in the future with some distance learning and perhaps also continued homeschool work. And I think Christy will share some of the strategies upcoming here in the education report. All right. Okay, I think most of the rest of kind of the museum activities will be covered in the individual committee reports, but I wanted to turn the floor over to Ryan to maybe walk through some of the high points of the advancement report. So Ryan, can I pass it over to you?
Yep, thanks, Joe. So everyone has a copy of the report, hopefully. As you can see, we were pretty much on track. This is through March 31st. So very similar numbers to the previous fiscal year. Obviously, the last couple of weeks of March were a huge drop off. But I did want to highlight some of the things coming up, or currently and coming up. So what we're doing now is we're reaching out to existing donors. So folks that have supported either things like the gala, summer camps, festivals, school group scholarships. So things that we're not going to be able to do. And so it's been very positive. Those donors have been really open to reallocating those funds to things like virtual programming, virtual events. So it's been very positive, and it's nice to have that communication open and ongoing. So one of the things we're working on now, we just submitted a $20,000 proposal to the Patterson Foundation, and that was going to be previously for school group scholarships. But what we did instead was reach out to the program officer and sort of threw around ideas and came up with overall support of virtual programming. So that's going to include things like education kits, support for online programming, virtual festivals, things like that. So there's the upcoming, hopefully, funding, and then the existing funding that has been reallocated. Another one coming up is the Boxley support. So if you remember last year, they gave $10,000 for school group scholarships. That was for outreach and distance learning. So we're going to modify that, and that's going to be more focused on distance learning, but also more informal kind of virtual programming. And they're very open to that as well. So very positive there. Also, and Zach can definitely add more to this, we're working on implementing a new overall fundraising and marketing system. So it's through Blackbaud, which you may be familiar with, but it's in addition to the donor database, it's going to have a new e-blast system, things like recurring payment options. It's going to have an events module, so we'll have online ticketing. We can have visitor check-in, check-out, so that'll actually help with crowd control. We'll know exactly how many people are in the building at one time, and as those people check out. And with that will be a new website. So it's all kind of coming together at one time. So when we launch the new website, hopefully later this summer, our goal is at the end of July. It will include an online payment system that's new and upgraded security, updated functionality. So very exciting there. Yeah, and just like I said, just focusing on maximizing what we can do now, and ongoing communication with donors. Those are kind of the highlights.
And I just want to underscore that when we upgrade this system, we're going to reevaluate because we were going to have the Dragon Festival in October, which of course is a rather sizable event. Even if we're in phase 3 at that point, if I recall, the maximum is 250 people that can attend. We might consider having a smaller event if we can use the new Blackbaud system to do advanced ticket sales only. And that way we can limit the number of people on the museum campus. So more to come on that. All right, Tom, I think we can turn it back over to you.
Any questions for Joe about his executive director's report, or for Ryan on the advancement report? Those documents should be there. There's a whole lot more detail than they actually went through. So I would encourage you to look those over at your convenience, or if you have any questions at this point.
Just a comment, Tom. Can you hear me? This is Lisa.
Yes, Lisa.
I should say I want to commend the museum, the staff, for everything that they have done to keep the museum going through everything that's happened. I think that they've done a spectacular job. The social media presence has been amazing, and I'm glad to hear that we're going to continue some of that even after the pandemic. So thank you to everyone for all the hard work and for everything that you've done. I think that the museum has shown really well during this, and I personally am going to eat a deep fried cicada at some point in my future. So thank you, Ben, for introducing me to that concept.
I don't know if Ben's on this call. I didn't see him.
Okay, well, thank you, Joe. And please let Ben know that I've really enjoyed the social media presence.
I think Lisa mentioned at the Research and Collections Committee that she had asked for them to preserve some cicadas so that the future board meeting might also all enjoy some fried cicadas. So we'll see whether that happens in August. Quick question for Ryan. Did you say that online marketing system is called Black Dog? Is that what I heard?
It's actually Blackbaud, so Black and then B-A-U-D.
Baud. Okay, I got you. All right. Okay. Is anyone familiar with that? Anybody on the board?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Roberto?
No, this is Barry.
Barry, oh, okay.
Yeah. We had it at Rye Grand.
Is it something, I'm trying to remember the name of the one that gets used more often for sending out email blasts.
Yeah, they're pretty standard in a lot of nonprofits and organizations. It's a pretty big organization, fundraising and lots of other ancillary functions.
Okay, great. Well, I look forward to seeing that roll out, and increasing the, the efforts in terms of marketing in this unique situation. So let me ask for Lisa as the chair of the Strategic Planning Committee to offer any report that they might have at this point.
Sure, I have a few items. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can, yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I have 3 items. The strategic plan, the draft strategic plan for 2020 to 2025 has been produced, but we're going to delay publishing and public announcements until things get a little bit back to normal. When that will be it's TBD, but really until the impacts of the pandemic and the future of VMNH become clear. So we're going to delay publication of the strategic plan. That's the first point. The second point is that, with the partial reopening, the virtual services, the creative actions like the drive-through reptile show, which is wonderful, social media, when things get back to normal, I think we'll need to look at our 7 areas of focus and just make sure that they still have relevance. And I'll just briefly say what those 7 are again. It's our 3 research centers, the education pavilion, the canopy walk, the upgrade to Douglas Avenue, the early childhood learning center, Waynesboro, and AAM reaccreditation. I mean, at first glance, they all seem exactly what we should still be focused on, but I do think that we should have a strategic discussion and just make sure. And then finally, sorry, my Zoom is in the way of my last point. I think Joe expects to have more information in the July or August timeframe on our revenue forecast. And I think that will help us sort of figure out our strategic direction. So those are the 3 items: delayed strategic plan, more information on revenue forecast later this summer, and moving forward as best we can during these sort of trying times. And at some point, as soon as we think we can, taking a look at our 7 areas of focus and making sure they're all still on track. That is my report. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
From a staff standpoint, Lisa, I'll just say that I couldn't have said it better. It matches what staff all feel internally in terms of day-to-day operations.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Were there any questions? Hearing none, let me recognize Barry Dorsey as the chair of the Facilities Committee and ask him to share any report that he may have from his committee.
Well, let me defer to Joe, because the big issue has been the pavilion, and I'm not sure whether it started or not. So let me defer to Joe on that.
Sure. We've done everything we can on our end. Basically, the final design is with the appropriate folks in Richmond. We're just waiting for them to give the architect a go-ahead so we can put out an RFP. Jonathan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yep, said it perfect. DGS has everything they need to get the approval going. The last holdup was the drainage system, which is engineered specifically for our building. So that took a little longer than they had expected. And then, of course, Corona threw some delays in there as well. Other than that, I think DGS has the actual documents and they're reviewing them because they're sending us bills for their time. So it is being reviewed.
Has anything happened on the Douglas Avenue facility?
Yes, that is also underway. The final documents have been sent in and submitted. There seems to be kind of a grind in Richmond right now with the review. I'm guessing due to COVID and the backups created there. That project is closer, I believe, to getting that roof on there than the other.
The roofing contractor is already visited and has taken time to do things like cores and so forth. Once we get the approval, we'll just turn the contractor loose.
Good.
And the money is still available for that as well. The maintenance reserve funds are there. So
super.
Any questions for Barry on facilities?
This is Lisa. I have a question. Are any of the projects time sensitive in terms of being needed to start before winter or after winter or anything like that? Is the delay going to be problematic in terms of the long-term schedule?
Yeah, perhaps to some degree, because the pavilion being an outdoor facility, it's a 3 to 5 month build out is what the estimate is. So even if we got started here during the summer, we might be able to open it up in time for freezing temperatures. So we're going to take that into consideration as well. We'll have the hard discussion with the contractor. Offhand, I don't know if there are wintertime considerations with construction. It may just in the end be best to have that open in the spring.
And the roof, is the roof going to make it through a winter?
Oh,
the
yeah.
roof. Okay. At the other, yeah. Okay.
No, we have the capacity to patch things up when and if needed, but right now I'm not aware of any current issue with, say, leakage.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
And I know, just a quick question. I know that the education pavilion, the idea was that the next phase of that might include connections to the park across the street. And I'm sure that the discussions about that have been affected by this pandemic. And certainly I'm hearing that the city of Martinsville is going through reversion. So do we know what will happen to the park property or any of those discussions regarding, partnering with the city to extend that project into the park?
Yeah, I'm going to have Jonathan fill in a few details here, but that said, we have kept close conversation with the city because they actually offered, and I wasn't really planning on making this like an agenda item here today because there's just not enough information available at this moment.
Okay.
But just FYI, the city basically broached the question, what if we deed the park property over to the museum and it becomes state property? So Jonathan, do you have anything? We haven't talked about this in a while, but do you have anything new to add?
Now we work with the city manager, Leon, and city council pretty closely on that. We're looking at a couple options as far as like a capital lease or them actually deeding the property over to us. But there's no, like Joe said, there's no information at this time to really move forward on.
Yeah, so we're waiting to get some our homework done on that end. And then obviously we can't make that decision, but it would be something that we'd bring to the Board of Trustees for a deeper consideration at that point.
Right. And so I don't mean to preempt the conversation, but certainly that sounds like something that the facilities committee should be engaged in if something happens between now and August or our next meeting.
Okay.
Well, I agree. But the reversion itself is slated to be 2 to 5 years. So it's slow moving.
Okay. That helps. Next, I'd like to recognize Art Evans to give a report on the research from the Research and Collections Committee. And I know that a summary report was shared with the entire board. So, Art.
Right. Let's make sure I turned on there we go. Yes, the full report is there, and I encourage everybody to take a look at it. But I just wanted to point out some of the highlights. One of the exciting things that's happened is that a long-awaited publication by Ollie Flint, who was a former trustee and a curator emeritus at the Smithsonian, entitled Scorpion Flies, Hanging Flies, and Allies of Virginia. And this appeared in the Insects of Virginia series published by the Natural History Museum. And it's the first new issue in this series in quite some years. And do take a look at the PDF that's attached to the Research and Collections report. There are some stunning photographs of preserved specimens. And these are insects that generally aren't very familiar to most people, but they are common if you know where and when to look. And they have some incredibly interesting behaviors and some interesting distributions around the world, which makes them of biogeographical significance. So having a baseline for the fauna of Virginia is really quite an accomplishment. And when I say long awaited, Ollie was put off the publication for many years because he wanted to put as many dots as possible on the map. And anyway, it's quite a publication, and I know that Dr. Ivanov put a lot of time into seeing it come to fruition, as did Dr. Steve Roble, who's with DCR's Natural Heritage Division. Another publication that came out was on a parasitic deer fly. This was the first record of it, of a neotropical species here in Virginia that appeared in Banisteria, which is published by the Virginia Natural History Society. Also, the museum has engaged the services of Dr. Jackson Means to work as a curatorial assistant to sort out the millipede collection at the museum. For those of you that don't know, the museum has one of the most important millipede collections in the world. This was due directly to the efforts of Dr. Richard Hoffman, who was the curator of that department for many years. Dr. Ivanov and Assistant Liberty Hightower are working on the bivalve collection, so the clams, mussels, and their relatives. This is a collection that has needed attention for some time, and they're seeing to it that it is being brought up to date. Nancy Moncrief, Dr. Moncrief, is continuing her work with squirrel genetics. Dr. Pritchard, our paleontologist, recently submitted a paper to the Journal of Vertebrate Paleontology. Jill Harris, who's the museum registrar, continues to process acquisitions to the museum, and these various acquisitions of specimens and materials will be distributed to the research and education collections. Haley Carmel, the collections manager, along with the curators and their staff, continue to work on preparing and updating the museum's collections databases. These databases are incredibly important because it will make the data that's associated with museum specimens, such as where and when they were collected, who collected them, by what means they were collected, and so on, make that data available to researchers around the world. And so this is it's a very slow, tedious process, but it's incredibly important because it makes all of our collection accessible literally to the world. And since the pandemic, the curators and the curatorial staff, as Joe pointed out momentarily, have continued to stay hard at work. And I just wanted to pass along kudos to Science Administrator Ben Williams. He's done a fantastic job in posting a number of natural history notices on Facebook, covering everything from plants to animals. Some of the more memorable things off the top of my head, the cicada, 17-year cicada emergence, which just occurred in Southwest Virginia and adjacent West Virginia, North Carolina. That's it. So it was a relatively small population, but still spectacular for those of you that are in the area. And also paleontologist Dr. Pritchard's Tales of Ancient Life. He has 13 video episodes now, all posted through Facebook, that have some wonderful insights into the world of paleontology and ancient life, and they're very well done. And in addition to the scientific efforts of the curatorial staff, I'm very impressed with their willingness and ability to engage a popular audience. We're really lucky to have people that possess that combination of skills. Oftentimes you get people that are really good at one or the other, but not both. Final notes, our archaeologist Hayden Bassett will be coming on board in July. And among many things, he'll be starting a fully funded 2-year study surveying various archaeological sites located in the Smith River floodplain. These sites, these are human habitations that date back anywhere from 300 to 10,000 years ago. And finally, the museum will launch a search in the fall to fill the geologist position vacated as a result of Dr. Jim Beard's recent retirement. Again, these are just some of the highlights. Please do take a look at the report, which again includes the full publication, the PDF of Dr. Flint's Scorpion Flies of Virginia. That's it for me.
Any questions for Art? All right, we don't have any new research associates then to approve for this go around, is that right?
No.
Art, I think your report was 66 pages long.
Well, a lot of that was on scorpion flies, and I spared you all the details there.
Yeah, really.
The pictures speak volumes.
Yeah, but the entire top's off, so I'm gonna go shower and change.
Yeah, I think the work that's being done by the curators is really impressive in light of the situation that we're in, and certainly appreciate those efforts to make it out to a public audience, like you mentioned, Ben is doing and Adam is doing and others. So I think that's all really, really timely and represents the museum quite well.
Agreed.
Let me recognize Cord Cothran as the chair for the Education and Public Programs Committee for a report. Did we lose Cord?
Get off mute. No, I was on mute.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Gotcha.
I'll get off there. So I thought we had a very nice meeting this morning. 40 minutes. It was just packed with information. What I'd like to do is let Christy go over it, but with a caveat of just saying that she's been doing just a fantastic job. And like Joe said earlier, short of having people come into the building, the new norm is everything that we're providing now, virtual classes, distance learning, everything that we're building for. So I'm looking at this as almost a great new start. And Christy will tell you that really up until COVID happened and we closed down, I think it was March the 12th, we were on a record roll for the education department. So we were doing really well. So I'm going to let her really break that down. But I just wanted to thank her for everything she's doing, because she's keeping all this going and still working with groups and keeping everything maintained.
Thank you, Cord. And I'm going to apologize because we have a second round of storms coming in. So it's kind of affecting my connection. But so we quickly reviewed our numbers for the quarter, which was included in the board packet that went out. So we quickly went over those. But like Cord mentioned, everything kind of came to a screeching halt early March. But what we have been really focusing on is still finding those ways to engage the public. And so we've been doing videos, and we've come up with discovery kits that can be purchased by the public, which is basically kind of a camp in the box. So taking some of our activities and things like that that parents, the public can take advantage of. We're looking at other distance learning opportunities, working with senior centers and various other things, looking at possible teacher professional development online, and then just modifying our programs with what may happen in the fall. So just trying to make sure that we are preparing ourselves, for what will come up.
I know that Ryan had mentioned that they had filled out for the Patterson grant, but one of the neat things that Christy had talked about was some of our scholarship funds for our summer camps. Now that we're not having it, they reached out to those, and instead of those people taking those scholarships back, they actually left that money to the museum to be used for other things such as virtual programming and other things that we want to run with. So it opened up some of those funds that we didn't have to give back. So I think they've done an amazing job just keeping some of that stuff going.
I'd also like to add, we're going to try to look at some of this from a positive standpoint. Yeah, we're going to lose some opportunity to reach out to school children. I mean, that's just going to be a given for this upcoming school year. So had discussion with Christy that when there are lulls in the activities that her staff will be engaged in, that they are going to be encouraged to go work with the curators to learn more about their disciplines. So to actually not do tokenistic work, but to actually be an extra set of hands out in the field when Hayden is digging at the Smith River, or if Cal is sorting out heaps of ants into, groups of species and so forth, right? And the same thing goes with exhibits. We did have on the calendar, and we have an operations meeting with the staff Tuesday, and we're going to be looking at how our timeline has been disrupted and how we're going to make adjustments now that a little bit of clarity's come. But we know that on the calendar is an update of our exhibits. We have the cats exhibit in the special exhibit gallery. Well, the next one needs to be developed. That might be something that Christie staff actually really engages heavily in. So we're going to try to, make the best of the situation. Think of this as almost a professional development opportunity, but then take advantage of those extra hands and talent to actually move some of our projects along more rapidly and more significantly. Thanks, Christy.
Oh, yes. And I do want to mention the question came up about marketing the kits. And so we're working with Zach and other staff on getting the information to push those things.
That's great. And I don't know if anybody has any questions. I have a couple. One is, are we going to participate again in the Virginia Association of Science Teachers Conference? And I know that they're doing something more virtual and related to the new standards and so forth. Is that going to happen?
Yes. So all of us are registered for that, as well as some other upcoming professional development. We're registered for something through the Smithsonian next month. So we're also taking this time to really look at the online professional development for us as well.
What's happening with the homeschoolers, Christy?
Yes, so we do have a really large homeschool population that we work with. And so what I'm going to be doing is just gathering insight from them on just thoughts on continuing our program, because typically we would start in September and run through May. And so, of course, we're looking at best practices of how to still do this and adhere to the social distancing and safety protocols. But also gauging, the interest of the parents with this. So definitely moving forward, whether it's in person or a mix of it, whether it's throwing in the distance learning as well with our homeschool audience. So it gives us a chance to look at what we can do with them.
I like the kit idea, and I think that's something I'd be curious to see how that rolls out. I know of a number of other organizations that have done something similar, and so, I hope that will extend. I'm at the risk of sounding like a broken record. I think I've said it many times, the way we can do distance education is really going to extend our statewide reach. And so where we can push on that, and maybe this is another way to push us, is this pandemic, and everybody's looking for online opportunities. So I commend you for thinking about it that way. And I look forward to using that as a vehicle to continue to reach out to parts of the state, that aren't as close by to Martinsville. And for those that are new on the board, I would recommend looking at both the last page of the advancement report, where Ryan has summarized visitation based upon state regions. And that's kind of interesting to monitor over time, as well as the report that Christy puts together, comparing last year to this year in terms of at the museum type programs versus distance learning programs. And those are a couple things that I've kind of found interesting to track over my time on the board. So I would encourage others to look at those. Are there any questions for either Cord or Christy? Hearing none, then I guess our next committee is the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee, and I'd like to recognize Faye Cooper as the chair to give us a report.
Okay, I hope you all can hear me over the sympathy of birds, or symphony of birds in my neighborhood. I just had to be outside. Yes, I have good news and bad news from the Waynesboro campus project. Of course, the good news is that the governor did include us in the budget, the 2020 budget for planning for our final design planning for the Waynesboro campus to the tune of probably around $850,000. The bad news is COVID, and that has put the budget, big expenditures for capital projects on hold for now. That doesn't mean it's going away. It just means we won't see it for a while. We don't know how long that will be. In the meantime, our committee is continuing to meet, and we have started discussions about how we can build our partnerships locally, the Waynesboro region, with other organizations and educators to get input on the design work for the exhibits in particular. For example, Lynn Poulin has put us in touch with, or has been in touch with, a retired science supervisor for Waynesboro City Schools, Maggie, Tom, what's her last name? I can't remember her last name, but anyway, I think she'll be able. What is it?
Van Huss.
Nan? Okay.
Van, V-A-N, Huss.
Okay. So,
Maggie Van Huss.
And so that's just an example of one resource that we hope to tap into. And I think, you know, Joe and Tom and others are to be congratulated for the good work they did, and Jonathan on getting the budget appropriation, which we do hope to see within the next year or two. It just depends on how things work out with COVID and the state budget. So that's my report.
If I could just add, Jonathan, especially since we have some relatively new board members, can you, the next phase of the Waynesboro project is called detailed design, and it falls on the heels of our pre-planning study, essentially. So can you give a brief walkthrough? The reason I'm having Jonathan do it, and you can congratulate him, he went and ran through the course and is now a Virginia certified construction officer. So, so he can build buildings now. So, yeah. So, Jonathan, go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Yes. So, thank you for that. Moving forward from here, we do have the pre-planning study completed. That'll be submitted, and then there's about an 18-month process of detail planning. Part of that is we select a new architect or our existing architect if they meet muster to follow with us through the entire length of the project. Being that we're only in detail planning means that there's an additional approval phase that will go through. The information will be submitted to DGS. DGS will make recommendations to the budget committees, and then the legislation will have to vote on it once again to fully fund the capital project. So normally it's set up that, you know, we'd spend the 2 years here working on detail planning, and then we'd have another vote. But due to the delays, I guess lack of data regarding revenues that they have allocated funds for right now until they can better decide when to start the project as far as detail planning goes. So that pushes us out maybe a year, maybe 18 months before we start detail planning.
All right, thank you. Faye, if you don't mind, I'd just also add that we also, some years ago now, we did establish a small exhibit in the storefront that we basically used as what we called the demo site. So when people had questions about our aspirations to build a branch campus, or just wanted more information, we would take them there, and we put some museum exhibits over there, thanks to a grant obtained jointly through the museum and the Center for Cold Waters Restoration about 100 years ago now. But that facility will no longer be available to us. So we've deinstalled the exhibit, but we're working with both the Waynesboro Public Library and the Augusta County Public Library, and we're going to reinstall exhibits there to kind of generate more awareness of the museum and its desires to have a footprint nearby. So Faye, that's all I have.
Now that's good. And I would just add to that the ongoing science talks that Tom referred to earlier are hopefully going to continue either virtually or in person in the fall, which is another avenue for, building the community awareness and support for the project. So I think that's been a real plus to the project as well. That's it.
Thanks, Faye. Any questions?
Yeah. The Williamsport City Council, Tom, I think has made a commitment of $1 million, right?
Correct.
And does that commitment still stand regardless of COVID or regardless of how long it takes us?
They have just renewed that commitment through a renewed vote or a resolution in support. I think that happened back in March. So yes, in answer to your question, they are still very,
Good.
very supportive. And actually they were extremely helpful during the session as well in voicing their support for the project. So yes, they're very much on board.
Good.
Okay, our next agenda item is our nominating committee, and I'll turn the floor over to Lisa Merner for her report and action item.
There are no action items I'm aware of for the nominating committee, so I do not have anything to report.
We have to vote on officers.
We need to conduct a vote.
Okay. So we need to vote on the officers. I do not have an email detailing the proposed officers to talk about. Perhaps, Joe, you could do that for me since I was unprepared, and I apologize. Do we want to announce the slate before we vote, I think?
We'll announce the slate and I can walk through that. And then you call for nominations from the floor.
Okay. If you will walk through who they are, I will call for nominations from the floor.
Okay, so for chair, still be Tom Benzing. For vice chair, Art Evans would remain. For treasurer, it would still be Jennifer Burnett. And for secretary, it would be Nathan Sanford. And of course, Barry remains ex officio as immediate past chairman.
Lisa, you're muted.
Thank you, Tom. Does anybody have any questions about that, or does anybody have any nominations from the floor for alternative candidates for officer? Hearing no suggestions for alternates, I think we can move forward with the vote. Do we vote for them as a slate or do we vote for them individually?
As a slate?
I would, say as a slate. And we'll go ahead, since that's a motion coming from a committee, we don't need to second or anything that report. And so we'll just call for a roll call. Joe.
Okay, Tom.
Aye.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Jennifer.
Aye.
Barry.
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Lisa.
Aye.
Cord.
Aye.
Melanie.
Aye.
Faye.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Roberto.
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
Siri.
Aye.
So, Joe, our summary vote, I guess, is unanimous. And so we all welcome Nathan to the executive committee and recognize Janet for her time serving on the executive committee most recently. And I think we are down to new business. Anything under new business? I do have one resolution that I'd like to share with you, but other than that, let me go ahead and share this resolution then. And it is recognizing Janet for her time on the board, so I will read it, and the text will be shared out with everyone and included in the minutes. Whereas Ms. Janet Scheid was instrumental in the success of VMNH for 10 years as a member of the Board of Trustees, including long service as Board Secretary. Whereas Ms. Scheid has demonstrated an abiding interest in education and natural history through the years. Whereas Ms. Scheid's expertise in environmental conservation has been an asset to the Virginia Museum of Natural History. Whereas Ms. Scheid helped lead the museum energetically and tirelessly, supported the pursuit of museum growth and success, ensuring that the museum focused its efforts to better fulfill its mission and serve the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia as a museum without walls. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History gratefully expresses to Ms. Janet Scheid its appreciation and thanks for service to the Commonwealth and the Virginia Museum of Natural History. And we will take a vote on that. Roll call, please, Joe.
Hey,
Aye.
Art.
Damn that mute. Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
I guess you get to vote on it.
Abstain.
Jennifer, did you say aye?
Aye.
I didn't hear. Okay. Barry.
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Lisa.
Aye.
Cord.
Aye.
Melanie.
Aye.
Faye.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye, thanks.
Roberto.
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
Thierry.
Aye.
So that completes our last sentence, which is done this 20th day of June 2020 in Martinsville, not in Martinsville, but virtually, by a unanimous vote of the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History. Congratulations, Janet, and we look forward to continuing to hear from you and your involvement with the museum.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just also want to point out, which doesn't come out in the resolution, but Janet, I cannot remember how many years you served both on the Waynesboro Committee and the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee. And that was a lot of years, a lot of meetings. Thanks for hosting those meetings occasionally in Roanoke, and a lot of road trips up north. So I very much appreciate all of that.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Art's having a good time over there.
Art, you're muted.
I was trying to let Janet know she was muted.
Yeah.
Am I muted?
Not anymore. No.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
It's been an enjoyable 10 years.
Janet was secretary during much of my administration, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Barry. Any other new business?
Just a quick question.
Yes, Roberto.
And I apologize if may have missed it along the way, but I'm wondering, in light of all the obvious issues that are going on and the financial picture that we were painted and everything that's going on, is there anything we need to do, or has the foundation talked about anything that they are doing differently to help address any of the shortfalls? I mean, being relatively new, I don't know if we engage them somehow or they engage us, or how are we in lockstep in terms of all the things that the museum itself is doing that likewise the foundation may be doing to, do things differently the same way that the staff and folks are doing differently to make up for whatever budget shortfalls?
Yeah,
That's an excellent question, and I haven't had a chance to speak with Mary Handy since I saw her in February before the closure and so forth. But certainly we try to communicate as best we can between the two boards and express some of the initiatives that are going on at the museum and how the foundation might support those. So you bring up a very good point, and I think we probably need to re-engage with them. And Joe, if you have any thoughts about that, please share.
Yeah, what we do each year, Roberto, is we put together that request in advance of the foundation approving their budget. So this year, we're just moving forward with some flexibility and agility because the foundation board has approved a budget with the caveat that they have not received, requests from the museum. So under normal circumstances, we've gotten funding for new exhibits and exhibit items, for curatorial projects to be funded. They paid for Dr. Chesbro and his services during our strategic planning period and whatnot. But since we won't have state budget projections, supposedly by July or August, we did not provide budget suggestions to the foundation. So we will do so following the release of the financial analysis by the state. And so to answer your question, yeah, it's been a pretty tight working relationship from that capacity.
Thanks.
Any other business? Any announcements anybody would like to share? Hearing none, then no further business or announcements. The meeting is adjourned. So I want to thank you for your time today. Certainly appreciate accommodating us here virtually, and we will be in touch as we move forward on how we're going to meet in August. But we do have tentatively scheduled August 15th, with this Saturday in Martinsville as our next meeting time.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you much. Stay
Bye.
safe.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, Michael.